Thanks for watching the latest video on the Hot News channel. In the past 24 hours, we've heard sad news about the deaths of some very talented people. In today's episode, we honor their memories and enjoy the things they left behind while they were alive. We'd like to ask for your help before we start. Do them a favor and give this video a like if it has touched your life or their memory. Thanks. Jimmy Cliff, a famous reggae singer, has died at the age of 81. His songs touched millions of people all over the world, with hits like I Can See Clearly Now and You Can Get It If You Really Want. Latifah Chambers, his wife, confirmed the story and said that he died after having a seizure and then getting pneumonia. She told his fans in her message that they were his biggest strength during his legendary career and thanked them for their love and support. He was born in Jamaica as James Chambers and started singing in church when he was 6 years old. In his teens, he went to Kingston to follow a dream that would change the history of music. His first single, Hurricane Hattie, came out in 1962 and was a big hit. Other songs in that series included Many Rivers to Cross and The Harder They Come. In 1972, he played the lead part in a movie that was based on that song. This song cemented his place in pop culture forever. He sang I Can See Clearly Now again in the movie Cool Runnings in 1993, and it went back to the top of the Billboard charts. He won 2 Grammys and was nominated for 7 more over the course of his career. He was added to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2010. Fans all over the world are honoring a man whose music connected people from different backgrounds and time periods. Jim Cliff did more than just write songs. He wrote songs about strength, hope, and freedom. Every sound that sings along with him will always remember him. The famous German actor Udo Kier has died at the age of 81. He was in more than 200 films and TV shows over the course of 50 years. Longtime partner Delbert McBride told everyone on November 23 that he had died. A close friend, Michael Childers, told me that Kier died in Palm Springs, California. The official cause of death has not been made public. Kier made a career of standing out, whether he was in a cult classic or an art house masterpiece. He was known for his haunting performances and captivating personality. Kier was born in Cologne in 1944, right in the middle of World War II. His life started out in a lot of chaos. A few days after he was born, the hospital where he was born was bombed. His mother and he were rescued from that close call with death set the tone for a life based on feeling and not giving up. He left Germany when he was young to get away from the wreckage of his past. His career started in London and quickly spread around the world. He first became famous with his part in Mark of the Devil. Then, in Flesh for Frankenstein and Blood for Dracula, he played roles that will live on in cult classics. During the 1990s, Kier moved into mainstream Hollywood, taking his intense style to films like Ace Ventura, Armageddon, and Blade. He worked with directors like Lars von Trier and was in Madonna's erotica music videos in 1992. He worked right up until the end of his life. Recently starred in The Secret Agent, which is Brazil's official Best International Feature Oscar entry. By Design and Bad Painter are 2 of his other ideas for 2025. Kier had a quiet personal life, even though he was famous. He liked being alone with his dogs and farming. He once said that it made him feel calm to watch palm trees grow. He didn't use social media very often. But his post from 2011 summed up how much he loved films. Streaming films is not a good idea. Give in to what the artist wants. Many people will remember Udo Kier's brave and unforgettable acts and the way he lived his life. The character Lucy Pevensie in The Chronicles of Narnia was based on the British actor and theatre producer Jill Freud. She died at the age of 98. Emma Freud, a British TV host, told everyone on November 24 about the death, saying that she had a quiet funeral with her family nearby. Jill's last words were just "I love you." Her life was full of art, fun, family, and a body of work that few others could ever claim. She changed her name to Jill for her acting career after being born June Fluid in 1927. She had to leave London during World War II and went to live with author C.S. Lewis. Lucy Pevensie from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, one of the most famous characters in children's literature, was shaped by that event. For many years, no one knew she was Lewis's muse. When she did, she said it was exciting, like finding out you were the real Lady Macbeth. She worked on stage and in movies for more than 50 years. She had over 20 TV and movie parts and played Jill Raymond in The Woman in the Hall, 1947. In 2003, she made her last movie role as the Downing Street housekeeper in Love Actually, which was directed by her son-in-law. She was also the founder and director of 2 repertory theatre groups in Suffolk for 30 years. She was a well-known and respected figure in regional theatre and fought for actors' rights. People knew Jill for more than just her skills. They also knew her for her daily red wine and chips, her willingness to dance tap at age 93, and her brave, happy spirit. She had 5 children, 17 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. According to her daughter, she is sassy, crazy, kind, loving, and playful. Heaven is very lucky to have such a beautiful new baby. 4. John Iman, a well-known actor from the golden age of TV, has died at the age of 76. The child performer who was best known for roles in classic TV shows like Leave It to Beaver, The Twilight Zone, and Petticoat Junction died on November 21. Iman got his start in show business in the San Gabriel Valley, where a talent agent sought his promise. The agent was the best friend of Iman's first-grade teacher. Having that early link set him on a path that would see him work with some of TV's biggest names. Iman was born in Chicago on October 2, 1949. He became famous when he played Theodore Beaver Cleaver's student in the pilot episode of Leave It to Beaver. After that, he was a guest star on many popular shows in the 1950s and 1960s, such as The Untouchables, Bachelor Father, Wagon Train, Going My Way, and The Lloyd Bridges Show. In a time when TV was changing quickly, his boyish charm and ability to do many things made him a dependable figure. That wasn't the end of Iman's story, though. He stopped playing and went in a lot of different directions that showed how interested and passionate he was about life. At one point, he taught English in Japan and wrote and recorded music. Later, he became a flight attendant, working for a company for more than 20 years. His life was a tapestry of creativity, service, and exploration. He showed how to reinvent yourself when you're not in the center. There are many things that John Iman left behind, even though his time as a TV actor was only one part. Everywhere he went, on screen, in the classroom, or in the air, he brought life, joy, and spirit. 5. Well, Gary "Manny" Mounfield, the famous guitarist for the Stone Roses and then Primal Scream, has died at the age of 63. Manny was a big part of the Manchester sound and helped define a whole group of British musicians. He was born on November 16, 1962, in Crumpsall, Manchester. He dropped out of school when he was 16 and helped form the Stone Roses, whose songs like I Wanna Be Adored made them famous. As She Beats the Drums, I Rise from the Dead. Their first record, released in 1989, was a big deal in the music world and changed the sound of UK indie rock for decades to come. When the band broke up in 1996, Monty joined Primal Scream and added his unique groove to a new wave of alternative rock. He stayed with the band until 2012, adding a psychedelic touch to their restless energy. In the same year, the Stone Roses got back together, which caused a huge wave of memories and new energy. A lot of people came to the tour, and the band put out 2 songs that brought back the magic they helped create decades earlier. He loved and lost people in his life outside of show business. It was 2023 when his wife Imelda Mounfield died after a brave fight with cancer. In 2013, they had twin sons together. These boys now carry on the family's sense of love, music, and strength. Even though he had a lot of bad things happen in his life, Manny stayed a sign of strength and loyalty, both to his music and to his family. From crowded stadiums to smoky clubs, Manny's bass lines made the music of rebellion, youth, and freedom. It's still impossible to deny his influence on British rock. He will always be remembered in every chord, chant, and echo of an age that just wanted to be loved. Alice and Ellen Kessler, the famous twin performers who wowed crowds around the world for decades, have died at the age of 89. Their bodies were found together on November 17 at their home near Munich. The Kessler twins became famous as dancers, singers, and TV stars in the 1950s and 1960s. They left an indelible mark on the world stage with their synchronized grace and timeless charm. In Germany, medically assisted death is allowed. They died with honor, next to each other, just like they had always lived. They were both born in Germany and started singing when they were kids. They quickly became famous. Before they turned 20, they were attracting crowds in both Europe and the US. They performed with famous people like Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., and Fred Astaire because of their unique moves, perfect timing, and warm personalities. The twins were regulars on Italian variety shows like Giardino d'Inverno and Studio Uno. They helped shape entertainment in Europe after World War II. They became well known in the United States after great appearances on The Ed Sullivan Show, The Dean Martin Show, and The Red Skelton Show. They were the first people to use music, dance, and their magnetic presence to bring people from different countries together. During their lives, they embraced glitz and sisterhood, and fans on both sides of the Atlantic loved them. Fans will always think of the Kessler twins when they think of ease, unity, and the golden age of show business. People will always remember their amazing shows, classic style, and the special bond that made two sisters famous around the world. 7. Cleto Escobedo III, who was the popular bandleader of Jimmy Kimmel Live and a great musician who could play many instruments, died at the age of 59. Cleto died on November 11, leaving behind a rich legacy in both late-night TV and live performances. He was known for his lively personality and singing skill. He was the leader of the band Cleto and the Clytones, which he started in 1995. He was a mainstay on American TV, mixing jazz, funk, and soul to make unique soundtracks that carried every show. Escobedo played the alto, tenor, and soprano saxophones with ease, and he often sang, which lit up the stage. Cleto Escobedo Sr., his father, was in his band, which also had Jeff Babko on keys, Toshi Yanagi on guitar, Jimmy Earl on bass, and Jonathan Dressel on drums. They made more than just background music together. They became a big part of the show. Known for both their groove and how well they get along with the host. In addition to appearing on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Cleto and the Clytones went on tour with Paula Abdul, Mark Anthony, and Philip Bailey of Earth, Wind, and Fire. Escobedo gave every act his all, whether it was in the studio or on stage. He did it with passion, accuracy, and joy. His friendship with Jimmy Kimmel, which started long before the show started, gave him another layer of honesty and warmth that made people like him every night. Not only was Cleto Escobedo III the boss of the band, he was also a performer, a link between people and the stage's heartbeat. His music is still heard today, both on records and in the way he played each note. He was born on March 22, 1931, in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. His family was Jewish and had roots in Eastern Europe. Joseph and Anne Shatner, his parents, lived a simple life in the Notre Dame de Grasse neighborhood. William grew up there, surrounded by the city's lively international scene. His father owned a clothing production business, which kept the family in a comfortable middle-class life during the hard times of the Great Depression and World War II. Yiddish and English were spoken in the Shatner home, making a bilingual space that would help William in his performing career later on. As a kid, William was active and creative, and he would often put on shows for family and neighbors without planning ahead. He went to Willingdon Elementary School and then West Hill High School, which is where he found his love for theater. Shatner wasn't always the most sure of himself as a child, struggling with feelings of not being good enough and a need to show that he deserves praise and attention. These early doubts would fuel his unwavering drive to succeed in the years to come. He found comfort in reading and telling stories. He spent a lot of time at the library reading adventure stories and classic books that took him away from the streets of Montreal. The harsh Canadian winters were the setting for his childhood adventures. William, his sisters Joy and Farla, and he would build huge snow forts and make-believe worlds in their backyard. His parents pushed him to learn and experience new things by taking him to plays and concerts whenever they could. Being exposed to the arts planted the seeds for a career that would last a lifetime. William was most affected by the radio dramas of the time. I learned early on how powerful voice acting and imagination can be by paying close attention to the voices that brought characters to life without any visual aids. In his teens, Shatner went to Baron Bing High School in Montreal, where he became more involved in school plays and theater clubs. At first, he wasn't the typical leading man. He was often cast in supporting roles or as a character, but he took every job with dedication and excitement. His drama teacher saw something special in the young performer. She said that he could fully commit to a role and that he seemed to have natural charisma when he stepped on stage. These early events taught him discipline, timing, and how important it is to connect with an audience. These are all skills that would help him become successful later on. Shatner went to McGill University in Montreal after graduating from high school, one of the most elite schools in Canada. At first, he studied business because his practical father, Joseph Shatner, wanted him to join the family business or go into business management for a stable job. And yet, William's heart was never interested in books or business theory. Eventually, he changed his focus to follow his real passion because he spent more time in the university's theater department than in his business classes. At McGill, he became heavily involved with the university's drama program, starring in numerous productions and honing his craft under the guidance of experienced directors and fellow aspiring actors. William Shatner's professional acting career began in earnest after finishing from McGill University in 1952. He started working as an actor at the Canadian National Repertory Theatre in Ottawa, where he was in classical shows and learned how to be a serious stage actor. These early years were important in developing his theatrical skills as he tackled challenging parts in Shakespearean plays and contemporary dramas. As part of the repertory system, actors had to learn how to play a lot of different roles quickly, which was great for Shatner. He quickly gained a reputation as a skilled and dedicated performer, catching the attention of directors and producers throughout Canada. Because of how well he did in Canadian theatre, he was invited to join the Stratford Shakespeare Festival in Ontario, which is one of the best classical theatre groups in North America. Stratford gave Shatner the chance to work with some of the best actors of his time, putting on plays by Shakespeare, Sophocles, and other great authors. As Ranger in the festival production, he showed that he could handle difficult classical words and give characters a lot of depth and nuance. The time he spent at Stratford was very helpful, and it gave him the confidence and reputation to look for work outside of Canada. The directors liked his strong voice, commanding personality, and willingness to try new things with his interpretations. Shatner was brave enough to move to New York City in 1954 to look for work on Broadway and in the new medium of television. The change wasn't easy because he had to show himself all over again in front of a much bigger audience of American actors. He got his first part on Broadway in Tambour the Great, and he kept working steadily in theater all through the 1950s. He had roles on Broadway, such as France Nguyen's role opposite him in The World of Susie Wong, which showed that he could carry a big show as a main man. The part got him a lot of attention and led to roles on TV and in films that followed. In the 1950s, TV was still trying to find its own style, and Shatner started to appear in a lot of dramas and variety shows. He was in episodes of Studio One, the U.S. Steel Hour, and Playhouse 90, which showed that he could play a variety of dramatic parts. Actors had to give perfect performances on live TV, without the safety net of multiple takes. Shatner's training in theater helped him do well in these situations. He also had memorable roles in The Twilight Zone. In the famous episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, he played a scared passenger on an aeroplane who sees something on the wing. This performance became well known and showed that he could portray intense psychological fear with conviction and subtlety. He started to get noticed in films in the late 1950s and early 1960s, when he played leading parts opposite Yul Brynner in The Brothers Karamazov. He was able to hold his own against well-known movie stars. He was in the Stanley Kramer-directed movie Judgment at Nuremberg, an important play about the trials of Nazi war criminals that starred Spencer Tracy, Burt Lancaster, and Marlene Dietrich, among others. Even though he only had a small part, being in such an important and well-reviewed movie helped him become known as a serious actor. He kept working in both films and TV shows, building a resume that showed how versatile and dedicated he was to his craft. For William Shatner, though, it was when he was cast as Captain James T. Kirk in the new science fiction TV show Star Trek in 1966 that his career took the biggest turn. The show, which was created by Gene Roddenberry, tried very hard to use science fiction to talk about modern social problems and moral questions. When he played Kirk, Shatner gave the part weight, charm, and courage. The leader of the Starship Enterprise, which is on a journey to discover strange new worlds. His acting style, which included dramatic pauses and unique speech patterns, became an important part of the character and was later both praised and imitated. Star Trek's first 3 seasons, from 1966 to 1969, didn't do well in the ratings, and NBC canceled the show after the 3rd season, even though fans fought hard to keep it going. At the time, neither Shatner nor anyone else working on the show could have imagined that it would become a cultural hit after being shown over and over again. The show got a new lease on life when local TV stations started showing old episodes again. This introduced the Enterprise crew's adventures to a whole new group of viewers. During the 1970s, the number of fans grew by leaps and bounds. Star Trek conventions were attended by tens of thousands of dedicated fans who loved the show's positive outlook on the future and its progressive social messages. In the years right after Star Trek ended, Shatner had a rough time at work. He was so closely linked to Captain Kirk that it was hard for casting directors to picture him in any other parts. It got hard to find work, so he did any job he could find to support his family, such as being in low-budget movies and doing speech work for commercials. Some stories, some of which Shatner himself confirmed, said that he lived in a truck camper and took on small theater parts whenever he could during this tough time. It was embarrassing for someone who used to be the lead in a network TV show, but Shatner was strong and determined, so he kept working and waited for things to get better. The turning point was when Paramount Pictures chose to make a movie based on Star Trek because it was becoming more and more popular. In the movie version of Star Trek, the original cast got back together, and Shatner played Admiral James T. Kirk again. He was called back to save Earth from an unknown alien danger. Even though critics gave the movie mixed reviews, it did well at the box office and started a series that would last for decades. Shatner's return to the part that made him famous proved that all his hard work was worth it and showed that people still cared about Captain Kirk. The experience of making the movie also brought the group members back together, though egos and tensions would sometimes rise during later projects. Because the first movie was so popular, there were many more Star Trek films in the 1980s and early 1990s. Each book in the series looks at a different part of the characters and their relationships. When Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan came out in 1982, it got the best reviews of the series. William Shatner gave a strong performance as Kirk, who has to face his mistakes and his own death. Kirk yelling Khan during his death scene in the movie is one of the most famous and imitated scenes in movie history. The movie also had themes about getting older, friendship, and making sacrifices, which gave Shatner a chance to show more emotional depth than he often got to in the TV show. Kirk, played by Shatner, destroyed the Enterprise to save his crew in Star Trek: The Search for Spock. This showed how willing he was to give up everything for the people he loved. The mood was lighter in Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home. The crew was sent back to San Francisco in the 1980s to save humpback whales, and the movie was the biggest hit in Star Trek history at the time. Shatner was able to show off his comedic timing and charm in the fish out of water comedy. He also had the chance to direct Star Trek V: The Final Frontier in 1989, but the movie got mixed reviews and didn't do well at the box office. He learned a lot about the difficulties of directing big-budget films from the experience. Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, which came out in 1991 and was the last movie with the original cast, was a fitting end to these popular characters. Shatner gave a complex performance as an older Kirk who was dealing with racism and had to face his own. The movie did well with both critics and audiences, bringing the crew's travels to a satisfying end. Shatner did come back one more time, though, in Star Trek Generations in 1994. This show was like handing off the reins to the stars of Next Generation. Fans didn't like Kirk's death scene in that movie. Many thought the character deserved a more heroic finish. However, it was the final act for Shatner as the character he had played on and off for almost 30 years. During these years, Shatner kept working steadily on other projects besides Star Trek. He was in a lot of TV films and guest starred on a lot of different shows, so he was always active in the entertainment business. During the 1980s and 1990s, Shatner continued to work on Star Trek films and also looked for other TV roles that would help him become known as more than just Captain Kirk. His role as a senior police sergeant who goes back to patrol duty after years at a desk was shown on the police drama T.J. Hooker from 1982 to 1986. It was a big hit and ran for 5 seasons, showing that people could like Shatner in a modern part that was very different from his sci-fi persona. His performance as the tough but caring Hooker showed that he could play strong men with depth and heart. He had to do a lot of his own stunts for the physically challenging part. When he was cast as Denny Crane in the legal thriller The Practice in the late 1990s, Shatner's career took a sudden turn for the better. His character, a senior partner at a Boston law company who had mad cow disease and early dementia but still had great legal instincts, was both sad and funny. Denny Crane was such a hit in the part that David E. Kelley made him one of the main characters in the 2004 spin-off show Boston Legal. Shatner's performance won him 2 Emmys and a Golden Globe, which was the kind of praise he hadn't gotten during his time on Star Trek. His chemistry with co-star James Spader made the show, and the scenes where they hung out on the balcony at the end were liked by many. By fans. Shatner was able to show off his comedic and emotional range in Boston Legal in ways he had never been able to before. Denny Crane was vain, offensive, and sometimes lost, but he was also smart and very faithful to his friends. Shatner played the part of Crane with the right amount of humor and pathos. People laughed at Crane's crazy behavior while also caring about and loving him. This part showed that Shatner could still give great performances that deserve Emmys and be interesting to modern viewers at an age when many actors are winding down their careers. The show had 5 successful seasons until 2008. Shatner had one of the best parts of his career in that time. Shatner was also known for being able to make fun of himself and self-parody throughout his career. He was the host of Saturday Night Live and was in a lot of comedy sketches that made fun of Star Trek and the way he acted. His famous sketch in which he told his crazy fans to get a life became famous, even though some people didn't get the joke. He played the negotiator in Priceline commercials, which was a big hit and ran for many years. The character earned him a lot of money through stock options in the company. He knew that to stay relevant in culture, he had to be able to have fun with his public persona, as shown by these commercial appearances. Shatner also went into music, which was a surprise. He put out a few spoken word albums where he dramatically interpreted both famous songs and his own writing. It was made fun of at first that his 1968 record, The Transformed Man, had over-the-top dramatic takes on songs like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. But over time it got a cult following and inspired a lot of artists. Has Been, which he released in 2004 and had produced by Ben Folds, got surprisingly good reviews. It showed that his musical projects could be real works of art, not just fun things to do. On the record, he worked with a lot of different artists and wrote songs that were mostly about himself and his life experiences. He also did very well as a writer. He wrote or co-wrote dozens of books, including science fiction stories, memoirs, and autobiographies. The Tech Wars series of science fiction books were big hits, and they were turned into films and a TV show. His autobiographies, such as Star Trek Memories and Up Till Now, gave readers a look into his life and work and entertained them with stories from behind the scenes of his many years in show business. He showed that he was a good writer with a unique style who could take his storytelling skills from the screen to the page. Shatner was one of the busiest actors in Hollywood. He almost never turned down work and kept a routine that would wear out someone half his age. From 1989 to 1996, he was the host of the reality show Rescue 9/11, which showed real-life emergencies and became a big hit out of the blue. He also made and hosted documentary series that looked into a wide range of themes. His interest in the world never went away. His dedication to every job, no matter how big or small, made him famous in his field. Co-workers were amazed at how hard he worked. William Shatner has been very lucky with his health throughout his long life and work. He led an active life and has a strong constitution well into his 90s. Shatner has been lucky enough to not have any major health problems for most of his life, unlike many actors of his time who had to deal with serious illnesses or conditions that made them unable to work. His active living is thought to have helped him live a long and healthy life. Like his love of horseback riding, which he turned into a serious hobby in the 1970s and kept up for decades. Riding and taking care of horses kept him physically fit and busy. It gave him exercise and mental excitement, which was good for his health as a whole. Tonsillitis, on the other hand, has been a big problem for Shatner for decades and has made his quality of life worse. During the 1960s, while shooting an episode of Star Trek, he got this condition that made his ears ring or buzz all the time. He was too close to a special effects blast while working on the episode Arena, which is when the accident happened. He would have to deal with noise for the rest of his life because the blast killed his hearing. Shatner has said in interviews that the disease drives him crazy, saying that the noise in his ears never stops and is especially annoying when it's quiet or when he's trying to sleep. At times, the tinnitus was so bad that Shatner thought it was one of the hardest things he had ever had to deal with. He has been very open about the times when the condition made him feel hopeless and depressed, especially in the beginning when he couldn't figure out how to deal with the constant noise. He had trouble focusing, sleeping, and enjoying quiet times because his phone kept ringing all the time. He tried a lot of different therapies and treatments over the years, going to experts to get help and looking into both traditional and modern medical methods. In the end, a mix of treatments, including masking methods, helped him feel better. Where sounds from outside the head help cover up the tinnitus, and cognitive behavioral therapy helped him get used to living with the condition. Shatner became an advocate for tinnitus study and awareness. He used his fame to teach people about the condition and help groups that are working to find cures and treatments. He worked with the American Tinnitus Association and took part in efforts to get more people to wear hearing protection and learn about how terrible tinnitus can be for some people. His willingness to talk about his problems helped lower the stigma surrounding the condition and gave comfort to millions of other people with tinnitus who felt alone because they had an unseen illness. In talks and public service announcements, he talked about his experiences and stressed how important it is to take care of your hearing and get help if you have tinnitus. Shatner has also been open about the normal problems that come with getting older. He had the usual aches, pains, and fewer physical skills that come with getting older as he moved into his 70s and 80s. He had to give up some of the activities that were hard on his body. For example, he had to cut down on horseback riding because his body could not handle the demands of the sport as well as it used to. He has talked about how frustrating it is to be mentally sharp and driven even though his body doesn't work the way it did when he was younger. Someone who had always been proud of his energy and vitality found it hard to get used to having physical limits. Regarding his mental health, Shatner has said that he has had times of anxiety and stress during his work, especially in the slow years after the original Star Trek cancellation, when he was having trouble with money and work. Being the main provider for his family's needs while also having an unsure job caused him a lot of stress. He also had to deal with the psychological problems that came with being famous, such as losing his privacy and always being known as Captain Kirk instead of William Shatner the person. These stresses had an effect on his personal relationships and made his marriages less stable. Even with all of these problems, Shatner has never said that he has big depression or needs a lot of psychiatric help. He has mostly dealt with things by staying busy and working, taking on new projects and tasks instead of dwelling on problems or setbacks. This way of doing things has helped him at work, but people close to him say it's also a way for him to avoid dealing with his feelings more deeply. Some people have said that his constant work routine was partly a way for him to avoid facing his own demons in quiet times where he might have to deal with tough feelings. Shatner stayed incredibly active and healthy well into his 80s and 90s, compared to many of his peers. He kept working regularly, kept his sharp mind and wit, and didn't show any major signs of cognitive decline. In his personal life, William Shatner has been through terrible losses and tragedies that have changed him in ways that are both obvious and not so obvious. His love life has been difficult. He has been married 4 times and divorced 3 times. With each end, he lost a relationship and went through times of change and personal reflection. For the first time, he got married to Canadian actress Gloria Rand in 1956. They had 3 children together: Liz, Leslie, and Melanie. The couple was married until 1969, which was the end of the original run of Star Trek and a time of career uncertainty for Shatner. The split was hard, and he has admitted that his focus on his job and frequent absences hurt the relationship and made it harder for him to be a good husband and father during those important years. In 1973, he married Marcy Lafferty for the second time. They were married for almost 20 years before they got divorced in 1996. Perry Lafferty was a TV director, and Lafferty was his daughter. She sometimes worked with Shatner on projects like Star Trek. It hurt to end this long-term marriage because it happened at a time when Shatner's work was going up and down, and the emotional toll of another failed relationship was heavy on him. In interviews, he has talked about how guilty and sorry he felt that his marriages ended, admitting that his workaholic habits and ego played a part in them. As he got older, the habit of putting work ahead of personal ties made him think about himself. On the other hand, Shatner's worst loss was his third wife, Noreen Kidd, who drowned in the pool at their Los Angeles home in 1999. The woman Shatner married in 1997 was a model and actor named Noreen. She struggled with drunkenness, which made their relationship unstable. Shatner has been open about this in the years since she died. "I wasn't home when the terrible thing happened on the night of August 9, 1999. When he got back, he found Noreen at the bottom of their pool. They tried to awaken her, but she was already dead. Based on the coroner's report, she had both alcohol and Valium in her blood, and it was determined that she drowned accidentally." Shatner was greatly affected by the death of Noreen. He was left with complicated feelings of grief, guilt, and what-ifs. He felt bad that he wasn't there for her, that he hadn't done more to help her beat her addiction, and that they had fought and had problems during their short marriage. He has been incredibly honest about this time in his memoir and talks, calling it the worst of his life. The trauma of finding her, the police investigation that followed, and the public attention on her death turned into a nightmare that was hard for him to deal with. To deal with the unbearable pain, he went to treatment and worked even harder all the time. People who knew Shatner before Noreen's death noticed that he was different. Even though he kept working hard, something seemed to be following him. It was a deeper knowledge of loss and fragility that showed in his later performances. He learnt about death and how important it is to treasure times that he may not have had when he was younger and more focused on his goals. Some of his closest friends and family said that Noreen's death made him face his part in the problems in their relationships and see how his actions had caused pain for them. Shatner lost his parents, along with his marriages, but these deaths were normal parts of getting older. After his father Joseph died, his mother Anne also died. These deaths were expected because both of them were very old, but they still cut him off from his youth and his roots in Montreal. Losing parents is a heavy thing to go through, even if you are already old. Making you suddenly aware that you are older and don't have any parents to protect you from death. In the same way, Shatner slowly lost many Star Trek co-stars and friends over the years. It was especially hard when DeForest Kelley, who played Dr. McCoy in 1999, died because he and McCoy had become close friends on and off the set of Star Trek. The actor who played Scotty, James Doohan, died in 2005. Even though Shatner and Doohan had a tense relationship in later years, the death of another original cast member was still a big deal. It was the death of Leonard Nimoy in 2015 that caused the most trouble. Nimoy, who played Spock, was one of Shatner's best friends for many years, but their friendship got worse in Nimoy's last years. The two men had a fight, and even though Shatner tried to make things right, Nimoy stayed away. When Nimoy died, Shatner was working on a project and couldn't go to the funeral. This caused him a lot of criticism, and he has said many times since that he feels very bad about it. Shatner's biggest regret is that he wasn't at Leonard Nimoy's funeral. He has talked about this many times in interviews and in his works. He said that he had to go to a charity event in Florida because of a deal, and made the tough choice to keep that promise instead of flying back for the funeral. He admitted that he should have broken his promise and been there to say goodbye to his friend and co-star of almost 50 years. Their relationship had been tense in Nimoy's last years, which made Shatner feel even worse about what he had done. They never got the chance to make up or move on. This loss taught him hard lessons about what's most important and how to be there for the people who mean the most. Nimoy and Spock had a falling out over a number of things, including business differences, perceived slights, and the complicated relationships between two strong personalities who had known each other for decades. It seems that Nimoy was annoyed by what he saw as Shatner's selfishness and need for attention, while Shatner was hurt by what he saw as Nimoy pulling away from their friendship. They never got these problems fixed before Nimoy died, which left Shatner with a wound that hasn't healed. This is a reminder of how ego and stubbornness can take away important links. He has talked deeply about how much he misses his friend and how he wishes they could talk one more time to clear the air. Over the years, Shatner's relationships with his daughters also had times when things got tough. Leslie, Elizabeth, and Melanie had a hard time because their famous father was often busy with work and couldn't be with them. As adults, they have had different levels of connection with their father, and Shatner has said that he wasn't always the present and caring father he would have liked to have been. His daughters sometimes felt like his work goals were more important than them because of the demands of his job, his own emotional problems, and the problems that came with having multiple marriages. He has said that he feels bad that he missed important events in their lives and wasn't there for them more personally when they were kids. Shatner married his fourth wife, Elizabeth Martin, in 2001. He met Martin while doing horseback riding and they became married. This marriage lasted until 2020, making it his longest and showing a level of stability and compatibility that he had not experienced in any of his other relationships. But even this marriage ended in divorce after 19 years of being together. This divorce happened when Shatner was in his late 80s. Compared to his other divorces, it seemed like a pretty amicable breakup, but it was still a big loss and change in his life at such an old age. The divorce processes were kept pretty quiet, but it was clear that even after decades of marriage, fundamental differences or changes had made it impossible to stay together. Shatner had to face some hard truths about himself and his ability to be in close relationships because of his history of failed marriages. He has been somewhat honest about his flaws in interviews and in his autobiographical writings. He has talked about his ego, his need for control, his trouble with being emotionally open, and his tendency to put work ahead of everything else. These statements show that the person has grown and thought about what they have done. However, there is also sadness in them about missed chances and harm done. He has talked about how lonely it can be to be famous and work all the time. He knows that the choices he made his life both professionally and personally difficult. In addition to his direct family, Shatner also lost many friends and co-workers over the course of his career. For someone who has worked in the entertainment business as long as Shatner, saying goodbye to co-workers who have died is like saying goodbye to friends. Each loss is a warning that people die and that time goes by. He went to the funerals and memorials of directors he had worked with, actors he had liked, and crew members he had become friends with over many years of working together. Some people have called these losses survivor's guilt, which is the strange feeling of still being living and doing things while so many others have died. the deaths of his Star Trek co-stars have been especially sad. Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura, died in 2022. Her death cut him off from another link to his past that would never be restored. For years, George Takei, who played Sulu, and William Shatner have had a public fight. In interviews and on social media, both men have made fun of the other. A different kind of loss is this ongoing strain, which has turned what should have been a bond based on shared experiences into one marked by anger and public fights. Some have said that Shatner's anger towards Takei is the result of old grudges and personality clashes from their time on Star Trek that have never fully healed. Walter Koenig, who played Chekhov, has had a more measured relationship with Shatner, though it still seems more professional than deeply emotional. Although the Star Trek group will always be linked in people's minds, they didn't always get along as well as their on-screen chemistry made it seem. William Shatner is still one of the busiest and most well-known nonagenarians in the entertainment business in 2025, going against what people think someone in their 90s can and should be doing. He is 93 years old, but he still works at a rate that would wear out someone much younger. His diary is full of acting jobs, public appearances, conventions, interviews, and other creative projects. Many people know him for his famous parts and his refusal to slow down or retire. He doesn't seem to be interested in leaving the spotlight that has been his life for most of his adult years. Friends and co-workers are amazed at how strong he is and how he doesn't seem to be able or ready to enjoy a quiet retirement. On October 13, 2021, Shatner became the oldest person to travel to space. This was one of the most amazing things he did in his later years. The rocket that Jeff Bezos' space company launched had him on board as a crew member. The flight was about 10 minutes long. Reaching a height above the Kármán line, which marks the edge of space, and giving Shatner the feeling of not having any weight in the view of Earth from space that he had only played in his role as Captain Kirk. He was deeply moved by the experience, and when he got back to Earth, he started crying as he talked about how beautiful Earth is and how dark space is, thinking deeply about life, death, and our place in the world. Shatner finally got to experience the real thing after years of pretending to explore the universe. The space trip was a full-circle moment for him. His emotional response when he came back to Earth was caught on video and went viral. Many people were moved by his genuine amazement and the touching thought of an old man living out what must have seemed like an impossible dream. Later, he said it made him angry that the moment was a bit commercialized and that he didn't have more time to just enjoy it without cameras and ads being around, but he still said it was one of the most important things that had ever happened to him. Shatner has continued to play in many different projects over the past few years, such as TV shows, movies, and voice work. He has been in a number of shows, including the TV show Senior Moment. He is always ready to play parts that interest him, no matter how big or important they are. He has also kept busy by going to Star Trek conventions and other fan events, where he gets paid a lot of money to appear and where a lot of people want to hear his stories and get autographs or pictures with him. These public events have become a big way for him to make money and give him the attention and approval he seems to need, even though he is very old. In interviews, he said that he can't picture himself quitting because he wouldn't know what to do with his time off. His job has been a big part of who he is for so long that leaving it would feel like losing himself. This admission shows both a great commitment to work and maybe some sadness about not having built a life outside of work that could give them meaning and satisfaction. Some people think that his never-ending work schedule is a way for him to escape facing death and the fact that he doesn't have much time left. Shatner's body has naturally slowed down compared to when he was younger, but he is still healthy and able to move around well for his age. He walks carefully like an old person, and his face has the lines and scars of 90 years of life, but his mind is still sharp, and his voice, while maybe not as strong as it used to be, still has that unique Shatner quality. He has made jokes about the embarrassing things that come with getting older, like aches, pains, and body processes that don't work as well as they used to. But he keeps his sense of humor about these facts. Since he and Elizabeth Martin split up, he has spent more time alone in his personal life. He hasn't been seen looking for love in public, and at his age, he may have decided that a relationship isn't something he wants or needs anymore.